Hi, I'm Andrea Procter. I'm the author of A Long Journey, Residential Schools in Labrador and Newfoundland, which has been shortlisted for the Atlantic Book Prize for Scholarly Writing. So I'm going to read you a part about the boarding school in Northwest River, which was attended by Inuit children from the coast of Labrador. For many children from coastal communities, integration in Northwest River was a difficult experience. Some encountered racism for the first time, in the community, at the school, and in the dormitory. Keturah Abel came to Northwest River from Hopedale for high school between 1969 and 1974. She recalls a sense of alienation upon her arrival to the community. She said, "As soon as we hit the dock, when the plane landed and got off the plane, I could feel how out of place we were there. And it hit me right hard. I said, oh my God, I didn't think it would be like this." And that's when I think I first experienced how hurtful people could be and how much prejudice hurts. Rosie Mitzuk, also from Hopedale, remembers physical and verbal abuse. She said verbal abuse all the time, and it was from the same group of people. I wonder why they were like that. I mean, what kind of upbringing did they have to treat people the way they treated us? The physical abuse was bad, like being run after and I had my hair pulled. The verbal abuse was the worst, being called skimos, Eskimos, and making fun of our language, like talking funny. Ivy Anderson Strangemore of Makovic also remembers a mixed reception from the people in Northwest River. She said some of the people were really friendly, but a lot of the people were really not friendly, and we were looked down at. And we were always made to feel that we weren't as good as everybody else. We were always put down. That was the biggest thing that I found and the hardest thing that I had to overcome. When I finally got out on my own and went away to school, I really had to convince myself that I was just as good as the person next to me and that I could do just as well. Evelyn Winters, who grew up in Kamartsuk and Nain, quit school in grade 9 after an incident with a teacher in Northwest River. She said, one of the teachers pointed at me, and they saw someone walking down the road who had quit school and who was on welfare. And they said, you're going to be just like those people out there. You're going to have kids year after year, and you're never going to amount to anything. And when he said that, you know what? I took my books and I left and I never went back. I was just so hurt and sick. After spending time in Northwest River, many students found adjusting to the return home very difficult. Although they looked forward to seeing their families, the transition back to their communities could be painful and confusing. Everyone had changed to some degree, both those who had left and those who had remained at home, as Edna MacDonald McLean from Paradise River describes. When the school year ended, I went home for the summer. I felt rather foreign, changed. My parents and siblings didn't seem the same, and my old friends, well, not exactly mean, neither were they totally welcoming. I was an outsider now, and it seemed I no longer fit at home. In different situations, boarding school had set this pattern for my life for many, many years to come. It's so very emotionally draining sometimes, but I let the good things in my life overrule these feelings most of the time. I've survived and learned to cope. When students internalized the racism directed at them and felt ashamed of their Inuit heritage, their feelings often mixed with guilt. Marjorie Anderson Flowers describes the shame she experienced upon returning home to Makovic from the dormitory and how she has struggled against it since. She says, I think the first thing that I remember coming home from high school was when I went in the porch and there were sealskins out in our porch, and it was a smell that hit me. I was so ashamed. I was ashamed of who I was. I was ashamed of my parents. I thought I was a bit better than them. It took a lot of time to learn the difference. And even in my head, I'll hear it now. I still have to learn and grow and go back to where I come from. She says, I lost a lot. I lost a lot of my culture and parenting and role models. I did. I lost a lot. I gained my education, but I lost a lot of me in the process. I almost didn't know who I was. I wanted to be someone else, and it took a long time to come back and find my roots. In the face of racism and institutional life, students developed ways of coping with their new life at the dormitory. Many built strong relationships and strong friendships and social networks that continued to provide support through adulthood. As Elaine Lane of Postville remarked, "We did make friends there. It actually filled the void, being taken from your home and put into a place that you weren't aware of." Some students held on to their pride in their Inuit culture by speaking Inuktitut, even though its use was discouraged. As a child, Maria Brown Brazeau was sent to Northwest River Hospital from Nain for eye treatment. School authorities pressured her parents to keep Maria in the school there, so she stayed at the dormitory for 2 years. She recounts her efforts to retain her language. On my way to the store, I would meet some young children from Northwest River, and they would be calling me dirty schemo and all kinds of terrible things for a child to be called. And I thought the whole world is against me. But I had happy moments too. They had some kind of fair or something, and everyone was happy and enjoying that. So everyone was kind then, and that was a good memory. But you never knew when it was going to crop up. So you grow up after a few times, and as you grow older, it builds in you this feeling that you're inferior. They wanted you to feel that you're not like us, and I felt that way very strongly when I was a teenager. So Bertha Ford and I used to go in behind. There were big swings behind the dorm. We used to go on the swings and talk in Inuktitut to our heart's content, thinking of every Inuit word we could think of as long as we could, and that was like us getting back at them, even though they couldn't do anything to them. But we knew that we would never forget our language, and we never did, her and I. We never forgot our language. We fought to keep it. And so to be strong, I'm Inuit and I know my language. Life in the Northwest dormitories was a miserable experience for many children. Some endured untold suffering. Others faced their own difficulties. For most students, the months spent away from home resulted in splintered family relationships, a forgotten language, and a newfound shame of Indigenous culture. Students and their families decided that this was not acceptable. As the next chapter describes, Inuit from northern communities of Nain, Hopedale, Makkovik, Postville, and Rigolet challenged the boarding school system in the 1960s and 1970s. Like the families of children at Lockwood and the Makkovik boarding school before them, the families of students at the Northwest River dormitories demanded better. Together, they pushed for schooling opportunities in their own communities so children did not have to leave home to get an education. The Yale dormitories' days were numbered. All right, thank you. Thanks for listening.